Members, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. Let's get started. Agenda item 1, information papers issued since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has issued 1 paper. The details are set out on the agenda. Items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting was originally scheduled for the 23rd of June, but now it is scheduled for the 30th of June at 2:30 p.m. The administration suggests discussing the following 2 items. A. Hong Kong's Climate Action Plan 2050, and B. Implementation of the feeding ban regulation under the Wild Animals Protection Amendment Ordinance 2024. Do members agree? All right, agenda item 3. Implementation progress and update of the Hong Kong Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. Let's invite the government representatives to join us first. Attending this item, we have Mr. Chey Chin-wan, Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Mr. Alan Low, Deputy Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Mr. Desmond Wu, Principal Assistant Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Mr. Patrick Lai, Deputy Director of Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department, Mr. Simon Chen, Assistant Director, Conservation, and Dr. Flora Mock, Senior Conservation Officer, Biodiversity. I'll first invite the administration to walk us through the paper. Secretary, you or your team may walk us through the paper now. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. Today, we will brief members of the panel on environmental affairs on the Hong Kong Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan concerning the implementation, progress, and update of the plan. Biodiversity is closely connected to our daily lives. Enhancing biodiversity conservation is indispensable. Our country has been emphasizing the harmony between humanity and nature. We have to build a beautiful China so that we can realize the idea of lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. Starting from 2016, we've had the Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan to step up biodiversity conservation and as well as to contribute to our country's effort in this regard. The first phase has covered 67 specific actions. All of them have been implemented or are underway. Over the past 5 years, we have designated 5 new marine parks. We have also had the Robin's Nest Country Park. We have banned local ivory trade, and we've also set up the Hong Kong Biodiversity Information Hub. At the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention, our country adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. It is a global framework. Also, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment also in January 2024 released the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan. Based on the above framework, we will take into consideration our conditions to implement the next phase of our plan. We'll also carry out a public consultation to collect people's views. We hope that we will complete the consultation within this year. Now I'll invite the Director of Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation to tell us more about the consultation. Deputy Director. Thank you. I'll now brief members on the implementation, progress, and update of the Hong Kong Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. In December 2022, under the presidency of China at the 15th COP, we saw the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The framework aims to curb biodiversity loss until 2030, and it is to realize the coexistence between humanity and nature by 2050. There are 23 targets, and because of the various conditions of different parties under the framework, the different parties can flexibly update their strategies and action plans concerning biodiversity conservation. The different parties to the convention are now updating their own action plans to contribute to the goal. The Kunming-Montreal framework covers a wide spectrum of areas, such as biodiversity conservation, biodiversity risk disclosure, climate change, pollution or waste reduction, and so on. There are some new concepts raised under the framework, such as nature-based solutions. China is the first batch of parties that have updated its initiatives. The Ministry of Ecology and Environment released the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan in January 2024, which covers 4 priority areas, namely mainstreaming biodiversity, addressing threats of biodiversity loss, sustainable use and benefit sharing of biodiversity, and modernization of biodiversity governance capacities. There are 27 priority actions outlined under the action plan in order to enhance biodiversity conservation in order to give guidance in this regard. GBA is listed as one strategic area under the action plan. There will be cross-regional efforts and regional collaborations will be enhanced to upgrade biodiversity conservation. With high population density and limited land resources, as well as financial constraints, we must have a balance between development and conservation to ensure sustainability of different measures. We will make reference to the mainstream international practices and accord priorities to different measures concerning biodiversity conservation to support the national policy and to contribute to the Kunming-Montreal framework. 40% of the land in Hong Kong are designated as protected areas. There is a robust legal framework in Hong Kong. This allows us to showcase the coexistence between economic vibrancy and environmental resilience. We can set an example for other cities. Also, Hong Kong is an international financial center. We can make use of our strengths in green finance to channel investments towards nature conservation. There are also international connectivity between Hong Kong and other places. We can serve as a bridge to promote knowledge transfer and partnerships. Having considered the existing framework as well as our local conditions, we've also considered the core elements of the national framework. We have come up with 4 strategic areas. 1. Nature conservation. 2. Biodiversity mainstreaming. 3. Capacity building. And 4. Collaborative partnering. The next phase will span 10 years. There will be a midterm review. Concerning Area 1. Nature conservation, to ensure the health of local ecosystems, and to tie in with the National Action Plan's priority action to enhance conservation efforts, we are proposing the following measures. For example, establishing the Shanpu Wetland Conservation Park, restore ecosystems such as coral communities and other degraded habitats, and conserve species of concern through enhanced enforcement against wildlife crimes. To foster broad societal engagement and to integrate biodiversity conservation into decision-making process across sectors, and to devote more resources to take forward various actions, we think that we can take the following actions. For example, mobilizing resources for sustainable natural resource use and conservation through funding schemes. Promoting wide adoption of nature-based solutions and explore refinement of industry-related guidelines and encourage community stewardship through educational activities and wildlife gardening initiatives. Concerning Area 3, capacity building, we think we can take the following actions, such as adopting technology and carrying out priority projects. Through collaboration with tertiary institutions, we can promote capacity building. For example, we can set up a research center for advancing the modernization of sustainable aquaculture. The goal is to enhance the capacity of the entire community so that different sectors and organizations can safeguard biodiversity. Area 4, collaborative partnering. We recommend deepening collaboration with neighboring cities. We can take the following actions. For example, we can manage wetland and eco-corridor with neighboring cities. We can also step up combating illegal activities and illegal trade of different species. We can also deepen exchanges concerning sustainable farming and aquaculture practices. We can also participate in forums and conferences to conserve biodiversity. Under the first phase of our action plan, we established the Interdepartmental Working Group. It will continue to carry out its work and conduct a midterm review. It will also continue to serve as a platform for capacity building. We will also continue to report regularly our work progress to the Advisory Council on the Environment. To ensure broad awareness and engagement, we will actively explore diverse channels such as forums, dedicated websites and social media platforms for sharing key achievements of the action plan contributed by concerted efforts between the government and stakeholders. We are holding a 2-month public consultation. It will end on the 11th of July. Afterwards, we will evaluate feedback gathered. Our goal is to update the action plan for publication within 2025 for implementation for the next phase. That's all from me regarding the report. Quite a number of members have asked to speak. They are Ms. Chen Yutming, Mr. Dominic Lee, Mr. Chen Xiuhong, Mr. Stephen Ho, Mr. Kenneth Lau, Mr. Tony Che, Mr. Chu Kwok-keung, Mr. Robert Lee, Ms. Judy Chen, Vice Chair, Mr. Kwok Wai-keung, and myself. Ms. Chen Yutming, 4 minutes, including answers and questions. I thank the administration for the briefing. I'd like to follow up on 2 areas. Paragraph 5 of the paper mentions that the government has implemented a series of measures. One of them is the Robin's Nest Country Park. We have had the eco-corridor built between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. This is to ensure the sharing of resources. I'm jealous that wildlife animals, they can cross the boundaries without having to display their identity documents. To ensure that wildlife animals can move freely between the 2 places, there will be a corridor for wildlife animals. So I'd first like to ask about the progress of setting up such corridor. Also, I see that near Shenzhen there are highways. What measures will the 2 governments adopt to ensure that with these highways, there could be sharing of eco-resources between the 2 places? I also noticed that the Development Bureau within this year rolled out some ecotourism trial spots. Lantau ecotourism is one important place for ecosystem. I'd like to ask about the development of Lantau in relation to tourism. How will this bureau talk to the Development Bureau to develop new areas for economy? For example, Lantau sees the conservation of marine lives.
Secretary, I'll ask the director or deputy director to answer the questions. Thank you. On the Wutong Mountain Robin's Nest Ecological Corridor, we have a dedicated working group that consists of members from both sides to ensure the ecological exchanges between the two sides in the area. On collaboration for both sides, we have been doing ecological surveys on both sides to see if there are any common species. We have made some enhancements. We want to make sure through such enhancement measures there is better integration. So for aerial animals or plants with seeds that will fly to the other sides, we will pay more attention, say for butterflies or dragonflies. The member mentioned, indeed, there are highways on the Shenzhen side. We also have a road in the restricted area on the Hong Kong side. There is actually space under the highway for animals to travel through. As for whether we should have other tunnels, we are liaising with the Shenzhen side, but of course security is a concern and there are other considerations as well. The member also talked about large-scale land disposal arrangements in Lantau. We have been liaising with the Development Bureau. When there are large-scale developments, environmental impact assessments would have to be submitted. So there will be an assessment on the ecological impact. Once we have the detailed proposals, we will provide our views. Thank you. Mr. Dominic Lee, we have a relatively small area, but we have rich biodiversity. I thank the EEB and the AFCD for updating the BSAP biodiversity strategy and action plan so that we can continue to move forward in preserving biodiversity. I do have some questions. In the paper, it is said that in 2035 the action plan will be completed. There will be an interim report. The action plan spans 10 years. Is it going to take long for us to see the results? Can we hasten our progress? It is also said that we would have the Shamposhu Country Park and that we will try to restore the coral communities. Do you have any figures you can share with us? We are in a difficult fiscal position. How can we achieve results with such constraints? On collaboration with other GBA cities, do you have any information you can share with us on the results of collaboration so far, such as what Ms. Chen Yuping mentioned? Would you also consider introducing tax incentives to encourage companies to take part in biodiversity-related initiatives? Thank you. Secretary, or is it the Deputy Director who is going to answer the questions? I can give a brief answer and then I'll let the Deputy Director provide detailed replies. Thank you. On Shamposhu Country Park, we only have the details later. We do not have the estimates at the moment. The plan will end in 2035, but the measures will actually be started much earlier on, and these will be continuing efforts. We will continue to monitor the implementation of the initiatives. We will have an interim review to gauge the effectiveness of the measures. Should there be any changes in circumstances, we may need to update the plan again. All right, I'll let the Deputy Director answer the rest of the questions. Thank you, Chair. Regarding Mr. Lee's questions, The first question was whether we can hasten our progress of the BSAP. We have all along been taking forward the relevant initiatives. After the promulgation of the BSAP, the AFCD has been taking forward the relevant initiatives. Let me talk about some recent efforts. Last year, for the designation of marine parks and country parks, we have done much. For example, for marine parks, we now have 8 of them. The total area has now reached 8,500 hectares. As the member mentioned, we also designated Robin's Nest Country Park in recent years. We also have a blueprint for development of agriculture and fisheries. With the KMGBF, China has promulgated the National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy. And we will see, with reference to the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan, to see if we need to further update our BSAP. Thank you. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you. The BSAP was announced in 2016. It has not been updated ever since. I believe there are significant changes in circumstances, so I support the updating of the BSAP for implementation of biodiversity conservation. And I believe this will also conform to the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan, as well as the KMGBF. The BSAP was announced in 2016. We have seen pretty good results in implementation so far, according to the Secretary. So from 2016 to 2024, and then in 2024, China has promulgated Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan. I'm confused because I think we have already heard some changes in 2021. Why haven't we attempted updating the BSAP earlier? We do not see any comprehensive reviews either of the BSAP. We're just making some enhancements. Why is it that we're taking so long to factor in the changes in circumstances? According to the PowerPoint presentation, we have 40% of Hong Kong's area designated as country and marine parks. But according to some green groups surveys recently, it is said that the habitats for animals are often found outside conservation areas, so the habitats are threatened. So the green groups are calling for some green hotspots to be set up, say on a map, so that we know where the habitats will be more vulnerable. So I want to ask the Secretary's stance on the green group's views. It is also said by the green groups 80% of the green hotspots are threatened, and 6% of such areas breed a great number of animal and plant species. Has the government participated in relevant surveys? If you have, would you have detailed implementation measures to deal with the issues raised by the green groups? Thank you. Secretary. I will answer from a macro perspective, and I'll let the Deputy Director supplement my answers. Regarding the implementation timeframe, we wanted to update the BSAP earlier, but in 2021, we understood that there would be the 15th conference of the parties to the convention, and there were some new strategies promulgated. We, of course, want to incorporate the newest initiatives in the COP conference in our BSAP. In fact, the conference, due to the pandemic, was postponed twice. It was actually after the promulgation of the KMGBF that another conference was held. Therefore, in 2024, it was only then mainland China promulgated the National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan, and then we wanted to wait until the announcement of this to incorporate the initiatives in our BSAP. As for what you asked about some green hotspots being outside conservation areas, we are trying to preserve biodiversity. We are not just preserving, say, the so-called hotspots. We will consider different factors, therefore. We will refer to the biodiversity in the area before making our decisions. We believe it will be more comprehensive. Thank you. Deputy Director, anything to add? I would like to take this opportunity to brief members on what we do in protected areas to preserve biodiversity. As I said, we have 40% of Hong Kong's area being designated as country or marine parks. We have some in hills areas. So in these areas, not only are we trying to conserve in the areas, we also try to develop engagement by having hiking trails in the areas. We have also done much in conservation of corals and dolphins. As for what the member asked about some low-lying areas not being designated as country parks, this is indeed a concern raised by green groups very early on. We have done more in recent years in this regard, say at Shampooshu or Yuen Long in general. Before, we would only monitor the developments in the area. Now we are being more proactive to include the fish ponds in Shampooshu in conservation. As you may know, last year the AFCD has designated Long Valley Nature Park, and we have done much in conservation in the area. And some of the areas are low-lying areas, and we have been able to conserve bird species in such land. This is what we have been working on. Next, Mr. Stephen Ho. Let me first say, I appreciate the EEB's efforts in recent years, and we have seen significant progress being made. We have some very extreme green thinkings, and it has impeded development to a certain extent. I suppose now we are trying to tie in with the National Conservation Strategy, and we're trying to strike a balance between development and conservation. Have we done more with reference to these eliminated some undesirable practices. In fact, marine parks were designated decades ago, but not many people even know we have marine parks. I think we have yet to tap into the potential of marine parks. We have been talking about harmony between humanity and nature. So we need humanity. It's not just about cordoning off areas for conservation. So under the various frameworks of the government, we should create economic potential so that we can strike a balance between development and conservation and lower input from the government. This is how we can achieve a balance. I also want to ask for marine parks. Have you been coordinating plans with the TLB and Development Bureau? Because it seems that with the other bureaus' initiatives, they didn't really take the EEB's policy into perspective. It's just like what happened in Longkutan. The area was designated as a marine park, but there isn't even a pier. How can we create synergy with tourism? I think with tourism everywhere, we need to create synergy by enhancing collaboration with other departments. If there is better coordination, you should send a message to other bureaus and departments that you have such policies. And say if the Development Bureau can work with you. Say in Laofao Shan we have oyster farming that are very important. Have you seen these policies being included in large-scale land disposal arrangements of the Development Bureau? Have you included these in the consideration of tendering agreements? There should be better coordination and communication. Lastly, for sample shoe, we should be more innovative. We should not rely on the model of MIPO. Have you been working with the agriculture, fisheries, and district stakeholders to see how you can develop the wetland conservation park under the biodiversity framework? MIPO, they would have performance indicators by bird species. But if there are too many birds, it's actually bad for the birds either. And in fact, there are also birds that are not exactly worth conserving because they are somewhat invasive. So how can we do more?
Mr. Stephen Ho has used all his time for his questions. I hope the Secretary could give an answer in a succinct way. You may also consider providing a written reply afterwards. I thank Mr. Ho for the suggestions. We've been working with the CSTB as well as the Development Bureau. We have been communicating with these two bureaus frequently concerning what natural resources we have and what beautiful places we can make use of in Hong Kong. There's been frequent communication in this regard. There are also many interdepartmental working groups within the government. There is a working group on developing tourist hotspots. So there is enough communication among different government departments and bureaus. Concerning the Sampo Shu Wetland Park, we can work with the trade in terms of applying innovative technology. And about fishery, we will continue to talk to the trade to see how we can do better. One more point, Chair. I'm not saying that the EEB is not communicating with other government bureaus on the reclamation on Longkutan. There was no consideration given to the marine parks, and that's why there were problems with the consultation. So I hope the Bureau can think about how we can make use of the resources we have. Mr. Kenneth Lau. The government is launching this public consultation. We all know that there is rich biodiversity in the new territories, especially in the rural areas. So we have to have coexistence between economic development and nature conservation. We have to respect the way of life of the indigenous villagers. I have the following questions. There will be more protected areas. According to the paper, there will be measures to ensure the healthy development of the ecosystem. This includes regional measures, including designating protected areas. There is also mention about marine parks, Sanpushu Wetland Park. This is to enhance the effectiveness. However, we should focus on the quality but not the quantity. The end goal is to conserve biodiversity. By expanding the protected areas, the administration will restrict the development of the rural areas. How will you strike a balance between the interests of owners in the new territories as well as biodiversity conservation? I also want to learn about the progress of Pact 9. I'm worried that the oyster rafts will be affected. Secretary, the EFCD will supplement on the progress of Pact 9 in Laofaoshan. I agree with Mr. Kenneth Lau. As we promote nature conservation, we should respect the interests of landowners. Therefore, we have been placing emphasis on how we can make use of different strategies to encourage better nature conservation. We want to mainstream biodiversity and increase capacity building. So we're not just extending the protected areas. On protected areas, we have the strategy for the Sanpushu Wetland Park. According to the strategies, apart from conservation, we will also take into consideration industrial developments. We will also promote, for example, tourism, so that we can create greater values. We hope that by taking this direction, we'll be able to win the trust of landowners so that they find our proposal more acceptable. This is our strategy. On Laofaoshan, I'll defer to the Deputy Director. Deputy Director, on the coastal park in Pact 9, this was a proposal under the Northern Metropolis Plan. We have just kick-started a consultancy study on this, and the study covers Laofaoshan and sites of ecological interest, including fish ponds and mudlands as well as mangroves. We have just kick-started the consultancy study. It will only be completed 1 or 2 years later in order for us to come up with some initial results and findings. As to whether the oyster rafts will be affected, well, the administration has recently done some work to enhance the management of oyster rafts in Laofaoshan. Currently, we see oyster farming in different oyster rafts. They are rafts floating on the sea. There are also rafts that are set up by wood piling on mudland. We will see what kind of impacts would be posed to local oyster farming before we make the relevant announcements. I want to declare that we have applied for the conservation subsidy scheme. Mr. Tony Che. Members of the public care a lot about the progress of the administration in terms of updating the BSAP. I'd like to thank the government for submitting this report on its work over the past 10 years. Many members stress that there should be a balance between conservation and development. Are there any assessment mechanisms for us to gauge our biodiversity in Hong Kong so that we can better understand our progress and results? According to paragraph 10 as well as the Secretary, there are different measures to conserve biodiversity, and the government will step up combating illegal activities concerning wildlife. Can you tell us more about what kind of work you have done in this regard to conserve biodiversity? Also, it is mentioned in the paper that there is an information hub and there are collaborations between the administration as well as some tertiary institutions. Has the government been encouraging tertiary institutions to allow young people to carry out innovative work in labs, for example? There could be monitoring devices or apps developed by young people. We can make use of these technologies to monitor the indices in areas like Shampoushu, which are relatively more sensitive. Secretary, I'll ask the Deputy Director to talk about combating illegal activities and making use of INT. The member is right that we need objective indicators to gauge our work. We need to compare our practices with that of other cities. For example, we are thinking of introducing a biodiversity index. Under the biodiversity conservation framework we have. We're thinking of adopting this index so that we can have an objective assessment of our work, and at the same time we can compare our performance with that of other cities. As for the rest of the questions, I'll defer to the Deputy Director. Deputy Director, on combating wildlife crimes, on one hand, we are combating illegal poaching in Hong Kong that involves threatened species. We've been taking law enforcement actions to combat such illegal poaching activities. We have a dedicated team of enforcement officers to combat illegal poaching. On import and export of endangered species, we have been mounting various operations with the Customs and Excise Department to combat illegal smuggling activities. We have also amended the relevant ordinance. The penalty currently is $10 million of fine and 10 years of jail terms. We have also formed with the Customs and Excise Department as well as the police force a cross-departmental group to combat illegal smuggling activities involving threatened species. On adoption of technology. During the first phase of our BSAP, we built the Hong Kong Biodiversity Information Hub. Also, under various subsidy schemes, we have subsidized academic institutions as well as researchers in carrying out different projects and researches to see if there could be innovative ways to conserve biodiversity. We hope that under the new phase, we can step up our work in this regard. We hope that universities, as well as INT organizations, can come up with new ways to conserve biodiversity. Chairman, could you ask the administration to provide more information on combating wildlife crimes? Can the administration provide statistics?
Mr. Chu Kwok-keung. The Hong Kong BSAP was implemented in 2016. There are 67 actions. Many initiatives were implemented. Since 2023, it is known that the government has not reported to the Advisory Council on the Environment on the updates on BSAP. If that is true, why? According to the first BSAP, before 2021, we need to have a list of endangered species. Why has it been delayed? Because this has yet to be announced, this list. We have some wild freshwater turtles, horseshoe crabs, as well as the other species. We also have the Eurasian otters. We do not know how these species are doing. So would you have specific action plans to these species? I have students recently taking photos of various endangered species, such as red muntjac and the other endangered species, but we haven't been able to take photos of them in the last 1 or 2 years. I'm concerned. We have marine parks only covering 5% of the waters of Hong Kong. Many important habitats in the sea are not protected. How can we designate more marine parks or coastal protection parks in order to protect the relevant marine species? Thank you. Secretary, I'll let the Deputy Director supplement my answers on reports to be made to the Advisory Council on the Environment. The last time we made a report was in September 2023. We reported to the Council on the implementation progress of the BSAP. We are going to update the BSAP. Before we update the BSAP, we will consult them. It's not that we never reported to them. We did make a report to them in September 2023. Before I let the Deputy Director supplement my answers, let me say this. We are just a city of China. So the BSAP or the Convention on Biodiversity is actually on the country level. So we do want to refer to the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan and see what elements we can incorporate in our territorial BSAP. We also need to conform to the KMGBF to a certain extent. We want to draw more objective comparisons with other cities, which is why we are planning to promulgate indices. for the city in the future so we can have more objective standards? Deputy Director, please supplement my answers. Deputy Director, please. Or Mr. Simon Chan. In fact, the updating of the biodiversity strategy, the relevant assessments are very complicated to gauge what species are endangered. For the first BSAP of Hong Kong, we have this as a mid to long-term measure because we have to consolidate data from various sources. The data are also in different formats. We need to assess the relevant data to make sure the standards are consistent. For the list of endangered species, we will announce our findings in phases. For the relevant species, we want to incorporate the latest situation in the list in our assessments. We expect the first phase of the assessments will be completed this year, and then the list will be promulgated in phases. Since the commencement of the first BSAP, we have been targeting endangered species and formulated specific species action plans, say for freshwater turtles, as well as Chinese pangolins, and a specific bird, black-faced spoonbills. We do want to make sure we have reference to the situation and promulgate specific species action plans if necessary. Thank you. Mr. Robert Lee. We have heard the administration's presentation on the implementation progress of the BSAP. They are also consulting stakeholders on updating the BSAP. I believe for the various areas of the BSAP, we will make even more achievements with the updates. In the development of business, it may affect, in the end, the environment in some way. How can you make sure when business is being carried out that businesses, say listed companies, are trying to preserve biodiversity in some way? Corporate governance is now being a very important part of listed companies. So do you have, say, some reference issues for listed companies to pay attention to? Say, in the paper you did talk about some financing arrangements such as the issuance of green bonds. What are the government's priorities in developing green economy? When you're trying to engage with the business sector, apart from talking about profitability as the business sector would be most concerned about, is there any way for you to convey to them your expectations of the corporations in participating in green initiatives? Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lee, for your questions. We have been working with the FSTB to develop green finance, mainly, and promoting ESG. What we are doing now is mainly publicity and education. We have therefore been attending different events including some green finance events to promote ESG among companies. We welcome companies when they have any plans to reach out to the EEB for us to give some feedback on our collaboration with the FSTB for preserving biodiversity and promoting sustainability. We have under the Sustainable Bond Framework some of the relevant project categories. We hope that with these, the relevant initiatives will have more financing. And again, private companies, if they have projects that are related to combating climate change and nature preservation, they can issue green bonds. What we have also been doing is promulgating a taxonomy. We have been trying to flesh out the taxonomy even more so that we can expand the scope of the green finance market in future. Thank you. Mr. Li Chan, Deputy Chairman. Thank you. I welcome the government's initiative to update the BSAP with reference to the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy and Action Plan. The BSAP has 4 priority areas and some priority actions in conservation. I do have some questions about the measures. Last week in the council, we talked about how we are to develop Hong Kong into a world-class tourism destination. And we have seen in recent years, tourists love the natural attractions, and the government has been trying to promote blue-green tourism. On this, how can we have interdepartmental coordination to strike a balance between development and conservation? Second, on promoting community engagement. According to Secretary, the government is trying to encourage more industries to take part, as well as the tourism industry to take part. Has the administration encouraged more private companies to take part so that there will be more public-private partnerships to take this forward? We do not have much time left. We only have 10 years or so left. So we really need to hasten the progress. Education is also important. I'm sure we have all observed that the temperatures are rising, so global warming is real. How can we tell the public that preserving biodiversity is very much closely related to how we can combat global warming and climate change? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you. I will let the AFCD representatives supplement my answers by giving specific examples on striking a balance between development and conservation. We do not only rely on communication among departments. We have in specific plans struck a balance between development and conservation by including both in the consideration of such plans. We will not sacrifice conservation for the sake of development. Northern Metropolis is a good example of our stance. We have the Wuchong Mountain Robin's Nest Country Park in the area. To the west, we have the Wetland Conservation Park System. This is a good example of how we have incorporated both development and conservation in our plans. On developing tourism, we will try to take into account green tourism projects in our plans. As I said earlier, we will not rely only on communication among departments in our efforts. As for education, we will continue to have publicity and education initiatives. We will also have community gardens and farms to engage the community. We also encourage people to take forward recreational fisheries as well as agri-tainment, so as to create green value out of such establishments, as well as achieving conservation. We will continue to work hard in this regard.
副局长，
Deputy Director. Chairman, on the questions asked by Ms. Judy Chen, that is, how can we develop blue and green tourism and at the same time conserve biodiversity? Our Bureau has been communicating closely with the CSTB. As we develop tourism attractions, we will think about the transportation network and whether the sites could afford heavy footfall for very sensitive ecological sites. We will refrain from bringing people to those sites. We have made careful considerations as we try to develop more tourist hotspots. We will only develop spots with good views and with low sensitivity. As you know, we are going to develop some mountains in Hong Kong. We will coordinate with different bureaus to ensure that we can strike a balance between conservation and developing tourism. As to how we can encourage the participation of private sector, we have set up an office on nature conservation. We have done a lot of work, for example, on managing agreements. We've been talking to owners of fish ponds to see how we can give full play to the potentials of the fish ponds and at the same time develop economic activities. There have also been public-private partnership projects. We hope that as we continue to develop wetland parks, we can offer incentives to private owners so that private landowners would be able to surrender their land under our land exchange programs. We want to offer financial incentives so that we can carry out development as well as conserve the nature at the same time with low costs. Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. We want more biodiversity conservation because we want to try our best to conserve threatened species. According to some ecology experts, there are species that can coexist. They complement each other. For example, only one kind of bees can help pollinate one types of plant species, and this is no easy matter. This is rather complicated. So we need a dedicated bureau, that is the EEB, to look into this. Now we have the consultation paper, so those who are interested, they must offer their views. According to the paper, there will be a list of alien species, and how often do you update the list? What is the latest progress in updating this list of invasive alien species? Also, I think public education is crucial. We need to educate the public about alien species. Will you come up with removal programs on targeted invasive alien species and promote public participation at the same time? Secretary, I visited the website of EEB. I typed in biodiversity, and I saw an ordinance about genetically modified species. Now, concerning genetically modified species, have we done enough in Hong Kong about this? Or is it not necessary to work on this yet? Secretary, on alien species as well as genetically modified species, I'll defer to the Deputy Director. Thank you. Under the first phase of the BSAP, we conducted some risk assessments concerning invasive alien species. Moving forward, we have to come up with a list of high-risk alien species. We also have to carry out researches to see how we can control these invasive alien species. We have a list of alien species concerning red ants and other species. We have an action plan to remove these alien species. However, we have to carry on with our work to prevent certain invasive alien species from entering Hong Kong. We will carry on our work in this regard in the next phase. Ms. Elizabeth Kwok. I'm all for this biodiversity strategy and action plan. Indeed, we have to move with the times. In recent years, from time to time, we see in rural areas certain alien species. Over the past 20 years, we spotted 5 crocodiles. All of them were not from Hong Kong, and some of them are endangered species. I think the crocodiles we spotted were just the tip of an iceberg. Over the past few years, we have turtles, lizards, snakes, and people are very interested in these species. And so we see sales of these species online or in physical shops, and a lot of these wildlife animals entered Hong Kong through illegal smuggling. A lot of people, when they buy these animals, they did not know that the crocodiles or snakes that they have bought would grow so huge. They also do not know enough about these animals before they buy them. And when they find that they can no longer feed these animals, they may abandon these animals in rural areas, and this may affect the local species as well as our level of biodiversity. I know there are laws in Hong Kong to combat illegal smuggling. However, it seems like there is a lack of statistics and figures showing how many of these species have come to Hong Kong, how many of them have been exported, and how many of them have remained in Hong Kong. We lack these data. What kind of strategies do we have to cope with these species that have come to Hong Kong? How will the administration step up promotion and education to teach the public that they should not buy these species without enough knowledge? How can we prevent them from buying these species that came through illegal smuggling? This is also to conserve local biodiversity. Thank you. Secretary, I'll ask the AFCD to tell you how we managed to combat illegal smuggling. I thank Ms. Kwok for the questions. Ms. Kwok brought forward some problems we encountered. We have laws in Hong Kong to control endangered species. Endangered species are controlled when they come to Hong Kong. There could not be trade involving endangered species according to our laws. We have recently amended our ordinance, and the highest penalty go up to $10 million of fine and 10 years of jail terms. From the quarantine perspective, for some species that come to Hong Kong, they may pose impacts on our local agricultural development and local crops. It may cause pest problems. They may also bring bacteria or viruses to Hong Kong. So we have been regulating the import of different species to Hong Kong. On a deeper problem concerning pet owners, do they have the level of awareness to decide whether they have the ability to take care of the animals when they buy the species, and through what procedures can they abandon their pets? We have been educating pet owners on the trading of cats and dogs. We have recently carried out a detailed research. Pets purchased from online platforms, oftentimes they are not in good health conditions. Same apply to other types of species. We want to remind pet owners that when they decide to buy an animal, they have to check whether there are legal means for them to purchase the animal. They also have to think about whether they can be a responsible pet owner. We will continue with our educational work in this regard. One more question. If the government has already spotted the issues about exotic animals or rare species in Hong Kong, I think there should be enhanced regulation. Mr. Andrew Lam. On conserving biodiversity, we have been rather low profile in publishing our results as well as allocating our resources. Hong Kong is a city. We can compare our performance with London and New York as well as other international cities. If we compare ourselves with them, we are doing quite well in terms of conserving biodiversity. We have 25, and in London and New York, they probably only have 10 odd species. In the UK, they have just 18 kinds of bats. So we are doing a lot better compared to some European countries. We have to be proud of ourselves. Apart from rich biodiversity, we also have many species unique to Hong Kong. We have a very special type of frogs and snakes, such as Rome's tree frog. From the perspective of civic education as well as publicity, we have to do more. Let's not talk about whether this is related to tourism first. I think we have to ensure that members of the public have an systematic way to learn about the different species we have. There are many information on the government's website. However, do people have a grasp of the biodiversity picture in Hong Kong? On biodiversity conservation, there was mention about illegal sales and trade. I understand that there are some action plans for different species in Hong Kong. For example, we have over 200 outlying islands. Can organizations breed the species concerned in the ecological habitats of these outlying islands? If these islands can be entered by different people, then it will be hard for the government to catch those engaged in illegal poaching. Now, the Ocean Park was originally an ecological research center. I hope the government can try to tell good stories of Hong Kong and see how we can make use of existing organizations and groups in Hong Kong. It's not that we want to invite tourists to go to these habitats, but there could be a more systematic way to display the ecosystems in Hong Kong.
Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lam, for your questions. I will ask the Deputy Director to supplement my answers by talking about the specific actions. We do want to enhance publicity and education. I very much agree with what Mr. Andrew Lam said about enhancing awareness. We have seen in the past 1 or 2 years more citizens of Hong Kong being very proud of the nature and biodiversity, rich biodiversity that we possess. As well, whether we can work closely with some organizations, including the Ocean Park, to enhance awareness. In fact, Ocean Park is already a close partner in the relevant initiatives. We will continue to enhance collaboration with other organizations. I will now let the Deputy Director talk about the specific actions of the BSAP and other biodiversity-related initiatives. Thank you. For the mainstreaming of biodiversity, it is one of our priority areas of the BSAP. Even in the updated BSAP, there will still be some major initiatives in the area. In the first phase, we have done much internally in mainstreaming biodiversity. We want to have in development from start of a works project, the element would have already been incorporated. We have seen recently some engineers design of drainage channels. They would have blue-green elements, and for coastlines, before in reclamation projects, we would just erect seawalls and we would make use of concrete for the coastline. You may have heard recently we have been making use of eco coastlines. So with the mainstreaming of biodiversity, it's not limited to the government internally. As the Secretary said, we are trying to tell the good stories of Hong Kong in this regard. We want tourists to know more about how Hong Kong has been preserving biodiversity, and that in turn will advertise Hong Kong as a livable city. Thank you. All right, all other members have asked questions. it's now my turn to speak. I have some comments to make. We have the BSAP having 4 priority areas and 67 priority actions. We have seen good results having been achieved, and we're talking about updating the BSAP. Say for wetlands, we are taking a more proactive stance in conservation. Before, we would only designate on maps which areas are to be conserved, and the indicator would often be quantity, the size of the areas. Now we are focusing more on the quality, the biodiversity in the areas. But we also have to be pragmatic. While we do want to have rich biodiversity, we need to make sure the community, the companies, appreciate the importance of having rich biodiversity. If we are just preserving biodiversity by limiting access to the areas, it is hard for people to appreciate the importance of the conservation areas. It is also hard for us to tell the good stories because we don't even know about them. In future, will there be more specific measures, say, to encourage private companies to not only do land exchange, but to incorporate preservation of biodiversity or community gardens, for example, in their ESG plans? Have you communicated with the planning department to have some indicators relaxed so that for some gardens or farms there can be more things that can be done to have a better profit potential, providing economic incentives for the private companies and citizens in general? Thank you. These are just my comments. Secretary. Thank you. On the development of agriculture and fisheries, green tourism, and try to combine conservation and tourism. These are what we have been doing. We have also been promoting urban farming. We do want to also not only increase biodiversity in rural areas, but also urban areas. We hope that with the urban farming, we will have some pilot applications that will give us some data in encouraging private companies to take part so that we can all go green together. That is the direction we are going to take. Deputy Director, anything to add? If not, we'll move on to the discussion of the next agenda item. I would like to thank the Secretary and his team for attending the discussion of this item. The next agenda item is progress of the implementation of the strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong. I will ask the representatives of the administration to come inside the conference room. Let me talk about the officers in attendance. We have Mr. Arthur Lee, Commissioner for Climate Change of the EEB, Ms. Diane Wong, Undersecretary for Environment and Ecology, Mr. Sebastian Wong, Acting PAS Climate Change of the EEB, Mr. Leung Waiman, Principal Environmental Protection Officer, Air Policy of the EEB, Mr. Eric Wong, Assistant Director, Gas and General Legislation, EMSD, Mr. Chu Wawing, Senior Engineer, Hydrogen Fuel Safety 3 of the EMSC, as well as Mr. Cheng Chin King, Chief Engineer, Gas Standards B of the EMSC. When you're ready, please brief members on the papers. We have spent more time than expected for the discussion of the previous item. We have already had the papers, so I ask the administration to be succinct with your presentation. You should complete your presentation within 10 minutes. Thank you, Ms. Diane Wong. Thank you. We are going to brief members on the progress of the implementation of the strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong. And as early as 2020, China made it clear that they would endeavor to achieve the peak of carbon emissions before 2030 and carbon neutrality before 2060. Hong Kong's carbon emissions reached its peak in 2014. In 2023, Hong Kong's carbon emissions had decreased by approximately 1/4 compared to the peak level. To align with our country's dual carbon goals, the HKSR government has set an interim target of cutting carbon emissions by half from the 2005 levels before 2035 and achieving carbon neutrality before 2050. Moving towards green energy is a big part of this, and hydrogen is a new energy source with significant decarbonization potential. It is now a big part of the National Energy Development Strategy. In June 2024, the government announced the hydrogen strategy to have 4 major strategies of improving legislation, establishing standards, aligning with the market, and advancing with prudence to create an environment conducive to the development of hydrogen energy in Hong Kong. We are limited in resources. We cannot exactly be a production base for hydrogen energy, but we have the support of the motherland. We can move towards green energy and achieve carbon neutrality. We have with the hydrogen strategy, following the 4 strategies, we hope to, in an orderly manner, create an environment conducive to the development of hydrogen energy in Hong Kong so that we can leverage on our advantages of being connected to mainland China and the world, and we can have products tested in Hong Kong and demonstrated in Hong Kong, and then we can become a demonstration base, allowing mainland companies to go global as well as bringing in overseas companies in the area. I will now ask my colleague to talk about the implementation progress specifically of the strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong. Sure. Mr. Sebastian Wong. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Undersecretary. As the Undersecretary said, hydrogen energy is a big part of how we can achieve carbon neutrality. Hydrogen energy has great potential, and the country has designated hydrogen energy as an important part of the national energy strategy. In June 2024, we announced the hydrogen strategy, setting out 4 major strategies of improving legislation, establishing standards, aligning with the market, and advancing with prudence to create an environment conducive to the development of hydrogen energy in Hong Kong. We're now going to brief members on the implementation progress. I will first ask the EMSD colleague to brief members on their part of the presentation on the hydrogen strategy. Thank you. On improving legislation, we are promulgating amendments to Chapter 51, the Gas Safety Ordinance, to regulate the various areas of hydrogen energy, say manufacturing, conveyance. And on the 12th of May, the first meeting of the Bills Committee was held. We are actively following up on members' comments. We do thank members for providing us with valuable views. We hope to complete the amendment of the Gas Safety Ordinance in 2025. In 2026, we will introduce the subsidiary legislation. That's the target. On establishing standards, we have also made some progress. We have promulgated several codes of practice. In 2024, we have formulated the code of practice for hydrogen-fueled vehicles and maintenance workshops, hydrogen filling stations, as well as a guidance note on quantitative risk assessment study for hydrogen installations. We are now formulating a code of practice for stationary HFC power generation systems. We hope to publish the code in Q4 2025. We are also formulating a green hydrogen certification framework. We are conducting the relevant studies. In Q3 of 2025, we plan to conduct trade consultations on the proposed framework, and before 2027, we should be able to establish the relevant certification system. Sure, please proceed. Right. On aligning with the market, the third strategy of the hydrogen strategy, we have been looking into different use cases for hydrogen. We believe right now we should focus on land transport. For transport, and the Interdepartmental Working Group on Using Hydrogen as Fuel has been actively promoting trials of hydrogen vehicles. Among them, we have been trialing the HFC double-decker buses since last year, and we have also seen a couple of cross-boundary vehicle projects being approved, and the project should commence this year. As for moving machinery, we have been trying to encourage hydrogen being used as a form of power supply in construction sites. We have seen the first of such being done in the Hong Kong Shenzhen INT Park. In order to tie in with use of hydrogen in future, we will have in various areas hydrogen filling stations. The Yunlong Alto hydrogen filling station was completed in late 2024, and we have already trialed the operations. We expect that in the next month, the hydrogen filling stations will commence operations.
On hydrogen filling facilities in Kowloon and the New Territories, we have already identified a few potential sites. We will submit the findings to the working group. We've also been making use of different funds to support R&D projects. They include the Green Tech Fund to implement R&D projects results. We also have the New Energy Transport Fund. Last December, we wrote out a subsidy scheme for trials of HFC heavy vehicles. We have been working very closely with the Construction Industry Council. We want to be able to make use of the Construction INT Fund so that we can have more hydrogen-powered devices at construction sites in Hong Kong. We have limited natural resources in Hong Kong, and we cannot be a major place for producing green hydrogen in Hong Kong. However, we do want to make use of innovative ways to produce hydrogen. For example, we are making use of landfill gas at the Southeast New Territories landfill extension. And the working group has approved a trial project at the Pillar Point Valley landfill. On capacity building, I'm going to invite the EMSD to tell you more. On capacity building, the government has been promoting the training for talents. The VTC has been working with the trade as well as some service providers to roll out training courses. There are three major categories of courses. The first type is to enhance trade practitioners' safety awareness of hydrogen energy. It is expected that the training course will be launched in mid-2025. The second type concerns those who want to register as hydrogen vehicle mechanics. Training will start within this year. The third type is the training targeting competent persons. It is expected that the relevant training will start next year. Apart from capacity building, we will launch some publicity and promotional campaigns. In fact, we have done some work in this regard already. For example, there is a forum in January this year. There are also international conferences that were held in February. Apart from these conferences, we want to, through different channels, to hold activities for young people, for university students. For example, there are sharing sessions. We are also producing some programs to promote the use of hydrogen. Other than that, we are holding large-scale forums. For example, between the 13th and 14th of March this year, the EMSD co-organized with the China Hydrogen Alliance at the Hong Kong Science Park. We attracted over 800 international experts. Also, between the 26th and the 28th of March this year, the EMSD collaborated with the China Hydrogen Alliance again, the China International Hydrogen Congress 2025. We hope that through these international conferences, we could work with the mainland to promote the use of hydrogen energy. We saw successes in these events, so we are preparing to hold the second international symposium next year. On advancing with prudence, we want to make use of the solid foundation built in the mainland. We've been working closely with the mainland. For example, the EMSD has been working with the State Administration for Market Regulation and the General Administration of Customs. We signed memoranda of cooperation with these agencies so that we can have cooperation foundation with these agencies. We've also been talking to the Foshan municipality as well as the Reform Commission. We hoped to establish a collaborative framework. So that we can collaborate with GBA cities with the relevant strengths to advance the hydrogen industry. We have the Pearl River Delta Air Quality Management and Monitoring Special Panel under the Hong Kong-Guangdong Joint Working Group on Environmental Protection and Combating Climate Change. We hope to have demonstration projects of cross-boundary delivery vehicles transiting into HFC vehicles. As mentioned, we have limited natural resources to produce green hydrogen. We may not have the conditions to build ourselves into a major place for producing hydrogen. However, we do want to leverage our advantages to have the support of our motherland and have the close connection with the world to build a demonstration base for hydrogen technologies. Since the establishment of the working group, we have agreed or approved some 26 applications. We hope to promote more trial projects in Hong Kong in future. I think we can all see the slide about the way forward. I would like to leave more time for members to raise questions. We have Mr. Robert Lee, Mr. Chen Xiu-Hong, Mr. Andrew Lam, and Ms. Elizabeth Kwok, who've asked to speak. Mr. Robert Lee, 4 minutes, including questions and answers. I thank the administration for the briefing. The EEB last June promulgated the hydrogen strategy. It covers 4 major strategies, including improving legislations, establishing standards, and promoting innovative technologies, and so on. It is mentioned in the paper that Hong Kong should make use of its status as an international financial center to promote the development of its hydrogen industry so that it can achieve its carbon neutrality goal. There have been projects or collaborations between the Hong Kong Stock Exchanges and certain enterprises. Have you been talking to the Invest Hong Kong to attract international enterprises engaging in the hydrogen business to come and be listed in Hong Kong. As for those who are already listed in Hong Kong, how are you going to help them with bond issuance as well as fundraising? Also, it is mentioned that there is the Green Tech Fund that encourages and supports R&D projects with potential for commercialization. Under this fund, 33 R&D projects have been approved, 9 of which come from universities and 1 from a private enterprise. 9 of these projects involve hydrogen technology. Among these 9 projects approved, how many of them could be commercialized? Have you made an assessment on how much profit could be made from the commercialization of the R&D outcomes? If the project is successful, of course, you will be able to share the outcomes. If the project is not successful, will you review the reasons behind? Under Secretary. Thank you. We have been working very closely with Invest Hong Kong. To give you some examples, in year 2024, at the Eco Asia Expo, Invest Hong Kong carried out many thematic events. It invited many green enterprises and experts from the mainland to see how we could expand our business partnerships. In February 2025, at the briefing session under the Green Tech Fund, as well as in March at the International Symposium 2025, Invest Hong Kong also, in these occasions, assisted different enterprises in seizing the opportunities. At the Eco Asia Expo, as well as the upcoming International Hydrogen Development Symposium, we will continue with our work in this regard. On leveraging our strengths in financing, well, the member just now asked about the Green Tech Fund. The member asked how we could make use of our strengths in the financing sector. The project mentioned in the paper, now there are 10 projects approved. It includes making use of renewable energy to produce hydrogen through electrolysis. It also involves the development of HFC. In year 2020, the Green Tech Fund saw an injection of fund. Afterwards, we started receiving applications. We have been communicating with the applicants to collect data from them. If we detect any technology or projects with potential which deserve further promotion or commercialization, we will definitely go ahead with that. For New Energy Transport Fund, in October 2024, we launched the subsidy scheme for trials of HFC heavy vehicles. For those who are building HFC heavy vehicles and who intend to build hydrogen fueling facility, the expenses would be covered under the scheme. These projects haven't been very mature yet, but we will assist the applicants in identifying the right direction. In relation to green finance, we mentioned in the paper that we have all along been staying in touch with the relevant parties. In May year 2024, there was the promulgation of the Hong Kong taxonomy, and there was clearer definition on economic activities as well as the interoperability. There were 12 economic activities under power generation, transportation, water and waste management, etc. Under transportation, using hydrogen is considered as an green economic activity. We will continue to work with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to expand this Hong Kong taxonomy.
Mr. Chen Siu-hong. Thank you, Chair. Last year, the EEB promulgated the strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong. It is about 1 year since then. We have now many trial projects of hydrogen energy. We have seen some developments, but I expect more. We shouldn't be limited to the 20-odd trial projects of hydrogen energy. We need to take a more macro perspective. I've all along been calling for having a hydrogen economy in Hong Kong. We should not only apply hydrogen, and the 20-odd projects focus on hydrogen applications. We have not taken a macro enough perspective, I think. For the 20-odd trial projects, we can have them form the foundations. I do note in the paper that there are some applications of hydrogen economy, including green hydrogen certification, as well as in the supply chain. We would have R&D, supply, storage, and then use of hydrogen. I heard the government say many times we are not poised to be a production base of hydrogen energy. I agree to a certain extent, but if we are only manufacturing green hydrogen, if we have no manufacturing operations of green hydrogen in Hong Kong, it would be hard for us to establish the relevant certification system. We can have in dams, we have relevant operations. Let me first declare an interest. I am a senior advisor for the CLP. We can have dams generate multiple kilowatts of power, and we're manufacturing hydrogen not for selling. It is for us to track the manufacturing process of green hydrogen for the benefit of our certification system, and formulate the relevant certification standards. It is very important for this to be taken into consideration to develop hydrogen economy in Hong Kong. So would you consider having in dams some facilities to generate hydrogen energy? I also note that you would have in your expanding the functions and membership of the working group some initiatives stated in paragraph 40. I think we need to do more because we need to take an even more macro perspective. We need to consider the financing part of things as well. We need to consider green finance. We would need to work with the FSTB and relevant departments. Sorry, I am a bit long-winded. I also want to talk about paragraph 37. The Foshan municipality is working with Hong Kong, and we are about to establish a collaborative framework. Can you talk more about the framework and the specific division of work? Thank you. Undersecretary, as the member said, we need to take a more macro perspective, developing hydrogen energy as an economy. We actually talked about some of the ideas in the paper. The member talked about some cross-boundary collaboration. We would think about importing hydrogen. we may not have favorable conditions to develop Hong Kong as a production base, but we do have some trial applications, such as a project in Southeast New Territories landfill to have landfill gas converted to hydrogen. We also have been testing out making use of solar energy to manufacture hydrogen. So we are testing different models of manufacturing that are feasible in Hong Kong. We have also tested some other solar energy projects and dam power generation projects before. We need to really see which models of generation will meet our policy objectives as well as be cost effective. For the working group, in 2024, we have already had the working group's functions expanded, including promulgating the widespread application and commercialization of hydrogen energy. As for finance cooperation, as you may remember, the SFC and the Hong Kong MA, they have a cross-agency platform. The EEB and the FSTB are members of the platform. Regular meetings are held to promote green finance. Much work has been done on the development of hydrogen energy. We will try to make use of the platform for further exchanges. Chair, I have a brief follow-up. For hydrogen labeling, especially for green hydrogen, we face fierce competition. Everyone is trying to be a leader in the area. If we can make use of blockchains to track the manufacturing process of green hydrogen up until the point it is sold, that is for the certification of green hydrogen standards being complied with throughout the process. I think we have the conditions to develop in this regard. I hope the administration notes the comments of the member. The MSD has actually engaged a consultant to conduct a study on green hydrogen certification. Alright, I'll extend the meeting by 15 minutes because we have 3 members who have yet to speak. Mr. Andrew Lam. I will not repeat what members said about the development direction of hydrogen energy. What I have reservations about is the pace and the vision. I am concerned that the government is being overly prudent. According to the paper, we are to become a demonstration base for hydrogen energy applications. But this idea is actually included in the part for advancing with prudence. And what kind of base are we trying to develop? We are talking about supply, storage, transportation, and use. It seems that we won't be supplying hydrogen on a large scale, but we have heard many stakeholders say in Hong Kong we can perhaps have small scale manufacturing operations for hydrogen. We do not really need factories. We only need facilities because these also help with demonstrating the applications of hydrogen energy. Another member also talked about how we can tie this in with green finance. These will also play a part in developing Hong Kong as a demonstration base. So we should not limit ourselves only to supply, storage, transportation, and use. If we only have limited operations. How can we be a demonstration base? We also need to move fast if we are to be developed into a demonstration base, because if people have already started, what's the point of demonstrating? So I want to ask what the government stance is on this. We need to have reference to the circumstances in neighboring cities in order to make sure we can be a demonstration base in the GBA. We shouldn't only consider local circumstances. Thank you, Undersecretary. Thank you for the members' feedback. If you can see in part 3, aligning with the markets, we actually talked about, we have the Green Tech Fund, the New Energy Transport Fund, as well as the Construction INT Fund of the Construction Industry Council. I won't go into details because I talked about them already, but there are some projects under these funds that are researching some applications. If there are good results, we will consider promoting the applications. In paragraph 20, it is mentioned that we have a trial project using landfill gas to manufacture hydrogen. We have also some projects that use solar energy to manufacture hydrogen. We will do trial applications in supply, storage, transportation, and use. This is just a starting point, because this will lay the foundations for the way forward for our next phase. I hope that members will understand we are still at a preliminary stage, so the scale of operations will not be large, and the manufacturing costs are quite high. In fact, according to the latest estimates, for each kilogram of green hydrogen manufactured, it actually costs $6. So right now, it is about lowering the costs. We expect by 2030, the costs should be lowered to $2, but there are many uncertainties. So right now, we're focusing on enhancing collaboration in the region with mainland China specifically, so that we can lower the costs, so that we can develop hydrogen energy further on the premise of hydrogen energy being more competitive than other new energy sources. Thank you. I have a brief follow-up, Chair. I understand the Undersecretary's concerns. We do understand the constraints faced, but then we need to make sure we are at least moving forward. We need to talk about how we can make breakthroughs despite the constraints. I understand what the Undersecretary said, but in future, can the Undersecretary talk about how we can break through these barriers rather than just talking about the barriers themselves? Thank you. Ms. Elizabeth Court. I continue to support the government's efforts in developing hydrogen energy in Hong Kong. With the strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong, it is a good step to take. It is an important step. But the thing is, we should not stop at trialing and testing. We need to move fast, according to what is said in paragraph 34. Through some trial projects, we will test out more applications. I also appreciate the various projects you have trialed at the moment, but can we test even more use cases? In paragraphs 35 to 37, you have talked about some regional cooperation measures as well as cross-boundary transportation arrangements. I thank the government for promulgating some cooperation framework. I want to ask about hydrogen conveyance vehicles. Have you any contingency plans should there be accidents? This is, of course, of public concern. How can we ensure safety for road users? We have also talked about having regional cooperation. What role Hong Kong plays? Should we focus on R&D? Should we focus on the technology part of things? Is there a list for us to see what completed projects can be applied to Hong Kong specifically? Thank you.
Undersecretary, on the contingency measures, I will ask the EMSD to supplement. Just now the member asked and said that we have been promoting different measures. For example, on hydrogen transportation. We have the light rail project. We also have the street washers making use of hydrogen. In some remote areas, there is an inadequate supply of electricity, so we are testing out the feasibility of using distributed electricity supply using hydrogen to supply electricity to offices at construction sites. Now, the Construction Industry Council has been promoting this to the trade, and it is studying whether it is possible to install hydrogen-powered generators at its zero-carbon park, turning to collaborations with the mainland. There are many projects and items listed under the Memoranda of Cooperation. Our country is a hydrogen powerhouse. It has its advantages in producing hydrogen and carrying out research and development. The mainland is of the view that we can be a connector. We have our advantages. We are a talent hub, so we can train up talents. And in terms of finance, it is also mentioned in the paper that we can make use of our strengths to help promote the development of hydrogen energy. Perhaps I'll now pass to the EMSD to tell you about the contingency measures. Now, on the contingency mechanism, under the working group, we have been exploring setting up such a mechanism. As we approve applications, we ask the relevant applicants or parties to provide contingency plans. And the working group will vet the relevant plans. Also, before the double-decker bus was given the permission to pass the tunnels in Hong Kong, we also did relevant tests. We did on-site tests. Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Chairman. My first question is similar to that asked by Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. According to paragraph 11, the government will propose a preliminary green hydrogen certification framework that is backed by our country's standards. If we don't even have the capacity to produce hydrogen locally, it's not very convincing that we can set up a certification institution or system in the future. I think our financial system can help contribute to the country the most in terms of developing the hydrogen sector. Just now, the Undersecretary mentioned that there can be 2 application scenarios, but I do not have an idea of how sizable these 2 application scenarios are. So I agree with what Mr. Chen Xiuhong said, that there should be more application scenarios before we start producing hydrogen in Hong Kong. Also, you mentioned in paragraph 16 that there are many projects approved, including the hydrogen fuel cell project. I want to learn more about this project. Is it related to new materials or new technologies? Also, among the projects approved, 3 of the projects have to do with cross-boundary transport. Are these left-wheel vehicles or right-wheel vehicles? Over the past weekend, I was told by some members of the trade that they imported a HFC right-wheeled vehicle, and they weren't sure where they could get the approval. Should they apply to become a trial project under your scheme before they actually can have the vehicle on the road? Undersecretary. I'll talk about the individual projects first, and on the certification system proposed, we have consultants working for the EMSD on this, so I will ask the EMSD to elaborate on this. On the HFC project under the Green Tech Fund, I'll ask the C4CC to supplement. Among the 26 projects, some of them are cross-boundary vehicles. They provide passenger as well as freight services. Some are pending approval. They concern cold chain vehicles. Oftentimes they are left-wheeled vehicles, because if it is a right-wheeled vehicle, you have to come up with a mold. You mentioned about a member of the trade that have imported a right-wheeled vehicle. We would like to talk to this member so that we can see how we can remove the relevant restrictions for them. The hydrogen fueling station in Alto will be able to refuel hydrogen for vehicles starting from this June. It might be cheaper to refuel hydrogen in the mainland, but we also have a hydrogen refueling facility in Hong Kong. So I'll ask a trade member to reach out to us so that we know what kind of offer or support we can provide to them. The EMSD. We have learned from different practices around the world, including those in the EU as well as our country. We have come up with a preliminary framework. It is expected that we will launch a consultation with the trade by Q3 this year. Once the framework has become mature, we might be able to trial the production of hydrogen in Hong Kong. There are 2 upcoming projects, one in Cheung Kwan O and the other one is in Tuen Mun, making use of solar energy. These 2 projects will be 2 trial application scenarios under hydrogen production. How many tons of hydrogen will these projects be able to produce? Perhaps you can provide the information after the meeting. Well, the hydrogen to be produced will be enough for the use of dozens of vehicles. Yes, Commissioner. On the R&D projects under the Green Tech Fund, there are 10 projects that have to do with hydrogen development technologies. They include hydrogen production and development of HFC. It includes the development and research of HFC materials as well as certain catalytic materials. One of the projects are completed by a local university, it could convert solid hydrogen into gas hydrogen, and these catalytic devices could help increase the safety of storing hydrogen as well as reducing the relevant costs. Mr. Chen Xiuhong, speaking for the second round. I have one simple question, Chairman. The day before yesterday, Ms. Elizabeth Quat and I attended an international summit on drones in Shenzhen. More than one companies used HFC to power their drones. Under the Gas Safety Ordinance, the EMSD said when we were to define hydrogen as a fuel or vehicles using hydrogen, it would not cover drones. Drones could be a trial project. I am aware that there are enterprises who are interested in using hydrogen fuel cells to power their drones. Should I reach out to Mr. Michael Wong, who is chairing the working group on developing low-altitude economy, or should the company reach out to the EEB? Undersecretary, it may has to do with the Civil Aviation Department because it involves drones. As for hydrogen refueling facilities, it is under the purview of the EMSD. We will collect the relevant proposals first. Afterwards, we'll decide whether we should hand the information to the interdepartmental working group or to the working group chaired by Mr. Michael Wong. I see that no other members have asked to speak, so we're wrapping up this item. Any other business? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you.